Welcome to the What's Your Ceiling podcast. We're your hosts, Monty Wyatt and Paul Szynski. Wherever you are in life, there is a higher ceiling. This podcast is how you become aware of it and how to take action to push through it. It's time to discover your ceiling. Welcome to the What's Your Ceiling podcast, where we talk about your health, your family, your business. I'm Monty Wyatt.
I'm Paul Szynski.
We have a great entrepreneur with us today. We're looking forward to a wonderful discussion and learning more about how you can be an entrepreneur and what that looks like and what your ups and downs are. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. I always like to start with a theme. And Paul, the theme today I want to talk about is serial entrepreneur. And so when you hear that phrase, what do you think that means to you? Serial entrepreneur.
Actually, I look at it two ways. There's two types of serial entrepreneurs. You got the one that gets up every day, that comes from probably is funded very well, that goes out, starts something, fails, starts again, fails again, and that's a serial entrepreneur. I would call maybe not a successful one, but one that has, I call them hobbies. They don't become quite a business, but they're a hobby. Now, then you have the ones that go out there that roll their sleeves up and realize, this is something they want to get into and they want to build something and they're driven by that. And they build one company and they love that and they usually sell it. Then they go out and start another company. Those are the people that are creative and people that are ones out there that really have the heart to push it through to be a business person. And they love the part of being creative. And I call that successful.
I love how you said that. Yeah, successful.
Yes.
And when I think of a serial entrepreneur, they're ones that are always looking for new solutions. They're trying to solve a problem. And they want to hire people. They want to find the solution to solve something going on in the world. And I think that the challenge is, how do you make it successful? How do you make it into a business? Because everybody wants to solve a problem, but it's how you make it into a business. And that's what a serial entrepreneur does. They make it into a ongoing, sustainable business.
And I think they first start out, obviously, everybody wants to make money because it makes you comfortable. But I think once they figure out that it's really not all about the money.
Yeah.
It's the creative part about creating a life that they want to live. And once you get that, and also you attract the right people. And when you attract the right people around you, you just get better and better and better. And that gives you the adrenaline to build more and more. And I think a lot of serial entrepreneurs become that. You see it in Elon Musk. I mean, one thing I love about Elon Musk is the fact that when he invents something, he doesn't keep the patent. He opens it up for everybody else. Where there's a lot of other people, wealthy people, that will keep that patent and secure it for their own benefit. But that's a good example of someone that has come to a level of growing and becoming a great serial entrepreneur.
I think that's a great point. Serial entrepreneurs are always learning. They're looking for better ways, more effective ways, more efficient ways. How do you grow the business? How do you grow your team? How do you gain sales? Whatever it might be, they're always looking for new ways to learn. Yeah. I think that's powerful.
And the world gets better every time.
Absolutely. Absolutely right.
So we're lucky to have the gentleman here today that's done all that.
Absolutely. And I want to introduce our guest. We've got Todd Mendenhall with us. He's the president of Cleaning Connection. He started back in 1990, and they're now involved in residential and commercial cleaning services. And he's been an entrepreneur since the beginning. He's owned, 16, 17 different organizations. And you sit on a number of related boards, and we're looking forward to hearing about all that. So you've had your hands in a lot of different things, and I'm looking forward to how you got started, how you got your ups and downs. And so welcome to the show, Todd. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having us. When you talk about serial entrepreneurship, I don't really think that myself as a serial entrepreneur, but I look back on the chapters, and I guess I fit the definition.
So how would you describe a serial entrepreneur?
When I first started, honestly, it was just, it was more out of, okay, I'm going to try and do something because my core business wasn't fulfilling what I needed to, either financially or personally. If you would have brought me something during that stage, I would have said, sure, I'm happy to partner with you. And so in the beginning, for me at least, it was just out of necessity. I'm going to try and find a new shiny object because my other one it's mediocre. I'm not doing very well. And then when I got some experience, I found myself, I got good at it. And then it really took me to a whole different level. So But I don't know about that term serial entrepreneur. I'm not sure I can metabolize that as well as well as you're saying it to me. But it is. And you get good at it. But to me, serial entrepreneur is the relationships, putting people and deals together, right? Because then that to me, that's a serial. Because if you're good at that and you can solve problems, right, and you can make things go easier in that business model. Now, running them day to day, I get a little. I start to flutter a little bit as I've gotten older, but starting them, I still get that vibe like, hey, I know Paul, he can put us together with these people and we can get the financing and, and we can solve some problems. But running them day to day is probably not my sweet spot anymore.
That's interesting you said that, Paul, or Todd. Todd, I see, I think there's different levels and sometimes that's when you bring partners in, but I think the game of a lot of entrepreneurs like yourself, it's the deal, putting the deal together and creating a deal that you can see the vision of growing that to build a company. And then you have the other people that are more operational type people. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think you have two different types of entrepreneurs. And a lot of times, and I'm speaking for myself too, because you love the deal, you put the deal together, and the next thing you want to do is just get out of the way.
Right.
And let the people that can run the company, which is a different type of animal.
Yeah, because I go back to the office and they're like, well, I would never want to do what you do. And I'm thinking, well, why would you want to sit in that office? You know what I mean? And our lenses are completely different, but they're happy in their seat on the bus. Like I'm happy with my seat, but they have no interest at all of doing what I do. So it's just a completely different lens in how you're looking at it.
Yeah,
it is.
I think that lens is an incredible thing, that we all see things in a different way. Yeah. And entrepreneurs see it as opportunistic. What's the deal? What's the growth? What's the thing that I'm solving today that I can give the lifestyle that I want out of it? So I think that's a great way to think about it.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you just said that. It's like, because I've been in that same situation. You go to the office, you think, man, I do not want to get on that computer and run those numbers like that, but I love go deal, get across the table, make something happen. And then they're thinking just what you said through that lens. They're looking at you. I would never want to have to sit across and have to do that. But at the same time, but putting that together, and I know Monte is a coach and he does a lot of putting those puzzles together. And we're in building your companies, you obviously were the deal maker. How do you putting those companies together and making that company sustainable? Give us some bulletin points where you think why you became successful and how you became successful.
Yeah, I think my number one is a solid. I think we talked about it earlier a little bit, like a solid foundation. And to me, that's you have to have a strong leadership team. You have to have some people. You have to have the right people in the right seat. And for a long time, I didn't. And boy, I mean, it's absolutely pivotal, especially for me now. I have to have the right people in the right seat because I'm constantly putting pressure on it, right? I'm constantly adding and putting more on it. And if I don't have them, they're going to break or fail. Right. So we have to have those right people in the right seat. That's the number one thing for me in deals.
Okay, let's qualify for our audience here real quick because we need to. Now, Todd has built a company, a cleaning company, and he started this back in the 90s and has scaled this to over 7 different countries. So states. And so he's worked with a lot of big companies in the United States, and you grew up with a blue collar family. You rolled your sleeves up. And I think we need to know that story, how it started, how you grew that, and putting those together.
Yeah, I was, I grew up on the south side of Des Moines. We were in a middle class home. We were, I would call generational, meaning I was probably going to do what my father did and what my cousins did, and that was just the path that you were on. I had a small inflection point. My sister had started a small house cleaning business, and some of those clients said, "Hey, would you come over and would you clean the office?" And my sister didn't want to do that, and I went to Don Wyckoff Heating and Cooling, and they gave me a very small amount of money, and which, by the way, at the time I thought was a very large amount of money, and that's how I got started. But it was just a very very small inflection. We weren't entrepreneurs. I'm not from an entrepreneur family. It wasn't in our blood. It still is not in our blood. And just that small inflection, and here I am, 35 years later. So it was just that small. And so that's why now I think back, I want to, not that everybody will have a take up on it, but I think it's so important for our schools and our educators to at least say it's an option for people, right? Not that they'll want to do it, or not that they'll end up doing it, but this is a possibility for you, and this is what it entails. And I think we will have some great entrepreneurs out of that. When I was raised, we were not raised that we were going to be entrepreneurs. So, and I'm not trying to be say anything negative about our education system back then. It's just we weren't going to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
So
right. When you started, tell us a little bit about your work life. Because you had to work during the day, you had to get work during the night. Tell us how you balanced all that.
Yeah, I wasn't. I would give it I would give it a 2 or 3 out of a 10 scale. I went and sold some during the day. I went and collect some checks. Try to do some books, and then I'd go clean at night. And it was just kind of a cycle. I wasn't making any headway. I wasn't. I had a few accounts, but it was nothing. It was nothing that was scalable. It was a lifestyle business at best at that point. And I was in that for a long time. I started in 1990. I was in that groove for what I would call treading water for 7-8 years, maybe a little more than that. And boy, it was exhausting because working all day and working all night, and it was not good. It was not well. And I had no business plan, had no ability to think about what it's going to look like or drive a vision or anything like that. It was like, it wasn't even week to week. I would say it's like day to day. I'd go to the post office. Oh no, what did I get today in the mail that I need to manage? And it was just, it was a difficult time to start that business.
And what was the turning point? You said 7-8 years when you were treading water. How did you get out of that treading water?
Yeah, I think just by happenstance, my turning point was a mentor. Somebody that did it, and I'm forever thankful. There's a lot of Tom Goldman from Iowa Paint was a mentor. There was some beautiful mentors at that point in my life through a program from the Small Business Administration, and they just would give me. And I had such a thirst for living because I was so tired. I was just sick of it was horrible. That was no good. And I was thinking, I had thought about quitting, and this can't be the way to go through life. And so I got some mentors, and they really, almost immediately had an impact. Like immediately. Like, do you have a vision or a business plan? And I didn't know what either one of those things were. Do you know what you want it to look like? No, I don't know. So it was, I went from, a completely day to day living in it to immediately I had well, this is what I'm going to do next month, which now I think now I do it in years and 3 years and 5-year increments. But I was like, well, what am I going to do next month? Which was a huge turning point for me. So I would say a mentor and a vision, or what I wanted to look like, was the turning points from that. That was, and by the way, that was happenstance as well. I didn't seek a mentor. I just kind of happened to fall into one, and it really was my turning point.
And what would you say is the biggest thing you learned from that mentor? Was it the vision, or to really focus on the people side? What was that biggest learning?
Yeah, I would say it was the vision, because I would just do any shiny object that floated down the river. Well, where do you want to go? What do you want it to look like? And then drive the boat to that port instead of just floundering whatever came my way. And at that point, I was going a lot of different directions, and my small business couldn't support it. I was going in if you had called me, I would say, I want you to do this, I'd be sure. And it shouldn't be in those, I look back and it wasn't in our core competency. I should have said no and kept in a much narrower lane. But I was just trying to make it. I was trying to get over that hump, trying to financially, emotionally, I was just trying to make it, So, but I think that turning point okay, what is it you want it to look like? Having a strong vision set up, and then it gave me some tips, like immediately, like, have you thought about this? And that I could put in my place, mostly back office stuff, and I could put in place in that. And you got to have some people. I hired my first real bookkeeper at that time, because I was doing the books and doing a solid, not a very good job at doing it. So I went out and they're like, go out and hire a bookkeeper. And so I did a few of those things, and it was almost immediate. I mean, immediately I was more successful. Immediately I had more energy, and it made a big change. It really did.
So focusing on the skills that you had as strengths was another big part of it. You got out of the day-to-day stuff that wasn't a strength to run the business, and you focused on what was a strength.
Absolutely, 100%. That is 100% what it was, because I wasn't going to do, or I didn't have the time, or I didn't have the resources, or just didn't like to do it. But you're right. I absolutely could focus on where I should be, which is really in my world, out selling stuff, out meeting people and telling people and evangelizing who we are, what we can provide to them.
And changing that mindset, being around those people that are winners and setting those mentors, it changed everything, didn't it?
It really, I mean, you sit with those, they were some sages. They were well known and well respected in town, and it just changed the way you looked at it. I didn't know that you could even think like that. I'm like, they were saying things, but I was so hungry, Paul. I was so hungry. Like if they'd say, listen, you go out, and I would literally, I remember I'd go and I'd immediately go out, like literally, and go do it, like immediately. Because I was just so sick of that environment of treading water all those years, I couldn't wait. I had such a thirst for learning, it was unbelievable. But it was too bad it took me that long to figure, I'm a little ashamed now that it took me that long to see the light. I'm really kind of ashamed of that, but I guess it's just where I was at, so.
Well, I'll tell you what, Todd, I think, and Monty probably back, I think we find a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, run out there, they think they don't want to work for somebody else, they got to go do it themselves. What they find is once they get out there, this is not a 40-hour job. Yeah. It's a 7, and usually I don't know what the number is, but I think that they get wore out. And they usually, 3 years? They'll eventually they're done in about 3 years. You happen to just hang in there for 7, 8, 9 years, and decided you had to do something different.
You're right. Yeah.
But I think we find a lot of people out there that get into business and they're running their business and they make themselves miserable because they don't have the processes, the structure, the mentors, and if there's any secret sauce to anything, that's it.
Yeah, for sure. You're right. I probably should have went broke. I should have. But it was like a turning point for me, and I quickly, because I had such that thirst for learning. If I read a book, or if they would say, one of those mentors would say, you need to do, I would go do it immediately, immediately, and it made big changes. It was impactful, like overnight.
This is a wonderful conversation because this is something Monty in his coaching business are you coachable?
Yeah.
If you're not coachable, he's got to move on. You don't have and anybody that's out there listening to this, you want to realize you got to be open-minded, and there's people out there that know what they're doing. And if you can get around them and be coached, and you can be around those mentors and understand that we all have the same issues. We're all small company, start out as small businesses and we grow into bigger businesses. But we always have the same problems, whether it's financial, people, structure, process, we all have the same. And I don't care what business you're in. And Todd's talking about a lot of the stuff that is a perfect example of the businesses out there that we go through. But to break through that ceiling that we talk about, is what you did to go, and you went through several ceilings because you're in several $1 million of revenue now, and you've done it with several different companies.
Yeah, so I think we talked about earlier that if I had to do it over again, I would go through the franchise model, right? Because they give you a book and that you can follow, and then I would have saved myself all that time. So I think that they're charging you to teach you, right? In my mind, I'm happy I didn't do it. But I think I would have been, my scope would have been, meaning I've been much more successful much sooner if I would have had somebody that I could follow a book, right? Instead of just learning on my own. And that's what it takes now. So I went out and found the book and I learned it. But in my mind, if you were like me, the franchise model is beautiful for a lot of entrepreneurs because you follow the book and you do what they tell you to do, and you're going to be successful. If you follow the book, you're probably going to be pretty successful. They know what it takes and they know what it doesn't take. Now, I'm not a proponent for a franchise model now, but if I would have did it day one, I would have had a much quicker rise, much quicker.
So you do a lot of reading?
I'm a big reader. I think I still, even now, I have a big thirst for learning. I love it. I mean, I think that if you quit learning, you're in a very dangerous spot, especially with going on in AI. I mean, this whole world, what we did a year ago or 3 years is almost, it's irrelevant. You have to always have a thirst for learning, always.
What would be a couple books you would recommend for somebody out there that's starting out in business?
Oh, that's a tough. I'm a Gino Wickman fan. EOS is swept the nation. I think it's hard pressed not to have something like Gino's type of. I'm not a real proponent to who they are, right? I think they all have. Vern Harnish, I think Dan Sullivan, I don't know if you've heard of, but they all have a good system. I think you need to figure out what works best for you and implement that in your business, because you've got to have a framework that you're following, that you're held accountable to. And so those are the books that
So EOS?
EOS and Traction, Gino Wickman is a great book. I don't, it depends what.
Do you ever read the E-Myth?
Yeah, I read the E-Myth. I like E-Myth. I think that's a good book. I like stuff that will build a foundation or a framework for me that we can hook onto. Those are the ones that I really like that genre. So Vern Harnish, who founded the group I belong to, Entrepreneurs Organization, has written several books. The Rockefeller Habits is another way. The Rockefeller Habits would be similar to discipline to Gino Wickman and Traction. Again, I'm not, now that when I go in and mentor entrepreneurs, I'm not sold like you should do this particular one, but you have to follow a framework every day. You can't just wander. You have to follow a framework, and you got to be held accountable, and the people need to be held accountable. And when you can do that, you're quickly going to go in the right direction, 100%. From somebody that didn't start out doing it very well. So I'm a big proponent of those type of books.
In your planning, your KPIs and so forth, how far out do you look to plan down to the day?
Yeah, we used to be, so I've been in business 35 years. It used to be a 10-year plan. And so, but as it's aged, it's gotten less. And so I think about a year is about as far as you can go in this world. We used to do 3 years, and then I was 3 years, and then we were 3 years until about 3 or 4 years ago, because it's changing so much that we would do all this work, and then about 90% of it would be completely gone by the time we got there, because the world had changed around us. I think about a year. So we go through a planning session on a quarterly, have a yearly goal, right, with quarterly pieces that are followed up on that, right? And then we dive it down. Okay, to me, it's like we talk about, okay, here's the big picture. Here's what we want it to look like in 1 year. Then we go down to quarterly. These are going to be the quarterly metrics for what we're going to accomplish this quarter. And then we meet every week, in our office every Monday. I'm like, okay, where are we at this week in relation to our monthly, quarterly, and yearly goals? Constantly want to be driving to that destination. But I think I think a year is in this, especially if you're I'm in all blue collar legacy businesses. Mine aren't like AI or technology, but I would say if you're in a technology business, man, it'd be hard to press be 6 months or a year, because what you do January 1st can sometimes be irrelevant with, at the end of the year. So. But I think I'm a huge believer that we got to get everybody in the right seat, build that strong foundation, and put some type of framework that I know Monte does that through his coaching. You have to follow some type of framework that allows you to be disciplined in following that every day. I want them to know, like when I go to their desk, I'm like, what are you working on right now that's getting us where we're going? I want to know what you're doing right now. And if it's not, you probably shouldn't be working on it, right? Where are we going? You should be working on it today, right now. I want you to be working on it today.
So you have those goals, those core values in front of your employees all the time. And what do you look for in a successful person to join your team?
Yeah, I think they have to, again, to your earlier point, I think we do, like, I don't know what you're using for, but I'm a like culture index, or I want to know who they are, right? I want to know, there's DISC, there's Myers-Briggs. I'm a huge proponent of it. I think I'm gonna have you fill this out because I want to know how you look and feel, but not only because I want to, but before we hire you, I want to know how you're going to interact with our team. I want you to know how you live and breathe. I want to see the world through your eyes. So I know when you say something, I know what it looks like. I'm not, and everybody, and to me, that's the beauty about having a great team, because when we look at something, we all see it differently, and I'm not right, and you're not right, right? But it's how we look at it and how we see it, and then we could make a decision as lean. But sometimes you have to have different. We talked about partners earlier. I mean, that's the definition. I want you to look at it differently than I do, because I can't see that. I have blinders on. This is what I can see. What do you see? I think that's absolutely pivotal in a successful team, is seeing a different way of looking at it. And by the way, that equals a different solution in my mind, because they're looking at a problem a different way. It's kind of like Uber, right? We're looking at a problem in a completely different mindset, and we got a completely different solution than we ever had.
Absolutely.
So,
and I love how you said that when you look for somebody, you want differing opinions. You want someone that's going to think differently. You don't want a yes person. You want someone that can actually be assertive and be focused and really recognize what are some other ways that we can solve problems with. And because we all have, as you said, we all have blinders. We all have things that hold us back, and that's what we need the great team to do.
Absolutely, right. I mean, I don't want any yes people. They do no purpose at our place.
No.
I want you to know have you thought about this? Well, no, I haven't. That's what makes a good team. And if you have those people that bring that to the table, I think it's very, very powerful. Very
Absolutely.
powerful.
Absolutely.
So,
we've talked about a number of things so far. I want to hear, how did you get into other businesses? You said you started some other businesses. You've been involved in other businesses, and to get back to that serial entrepreneur type concept, how'd you get into other businesses, and how'd you get out of other businesses, things like that?
Yeah. So, I finally got some traction after that 8 or 9 years. I started making some money. And then people would approach me, and at first I wasn't very good at it. I probably got into some lanes. I had a printing business. I bought a Nextel dealership. I bought a cellular phone business. I got into some things that probably weren't in my lane, and I wasn't very good at it. I would say that those were not very robust for a blue collar doing a technology business. Is probably not something you want to mirror up. But then I got better at it, right? And then you get into channels and you get to people, and they would bring me deals that were in my lane and that I did know, and they had the same people or contact that we did in my legacy business. And it'd be easy, like, okay, I sold you X and now I want to sell you Y, and it's the same person. To me, that makes perfect sense. We've got the same people. So I got into some waste businesses, some recycling businesses that are really not the same, but they're in alignment with it's the same contact, the same people, it's the same environment. It's not like my cell phone business was a complete, it was probably not the best for us because it was not in any of our channels. None of the salespeople knew any of those people. It was a retail focus. We've never been in retail, and it failed. So I kind of got into some lanes, and then I got good at it, and that's how I got started in it. But I did some failures up front, though, for sure.
Well, I think you brought something up, Todd, that happens to a lot of successful entrepreneurs. And I've been guilty of it myself, is you get to a certain level of success and you feel pretty good about yourself and you think you know what you're doing. And then you're getting offers from other people to get in their deals or to start something different. I can do that. And you said something, you got outside your lane. And you realize it's another thought process. Yeah. It's a different structure. And I see that a lot. Successful people put money in and fail. And you think, well, I built this company up to several $1 million. I'm a successful person. I can do anything. And everybody gets the Superman syndrome. We all do. And then we branch out of our area and get your ass kicked.
I see it a lot. I see a lot where very successful people, very successful, very educated, did very well. They do investments and things outside their lanes and fail immediately. Mm-hmm. It's not you. It's I see a lot of that. I'm not saying that you can't, but boy, I see a lot of failures when you do that.
Too.
You know, I do.
Yeah.
And I did it. I mean, I think you got to stay. I think you got to stay. You got to say, okay, I have some wealth, and here's why I've made some wealth. Meaning, here's why I was successful, and stay in those lanes with those people, those places. And if you can stay in those lanes, I think you can be a serial entrepreneur and be very successful at it. But I think you got to be very mindful of where you do that at. You really got to think about it.
You know, when we were talking earlier, you said a phrase of abundance, thinking in abundance. Tell us about that and what that turning point did for you to when you thought bigger picture and you thought of abundance versus scarcity.
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, I get a little melancholy when we talk about it because it's hard to live in abundance when you don't have the means or the wealth, meaning you're just making ends meet and you may be starting a new business and you can't have an abundance. But when you switch over to abundance, your whole lens changes, the way you look at things, and most importantly to me, abundance is with my people. Because when I can create the atmosphere of abundance with people, it changes them entirely, right? I don't want to go in negotiations with them. I want to be more than fair with them, I want them to be more than happy. I want them to be. And when you have that, and when you can live a life of abundance with your people in particular, they don't leave. They don't leave. They like it. You have a good environment, and to me, that's what you can do with abundance. But I want to make sure that it's hard when you're first starting out with the scarcity piece because you're just trying to pay the bills. But
right.
when you can live the life and have some abundance, boy, it's very, very powerful. Meaning I want to share with people what I have, right? I'm happy. I'm happy to share it with you. More than happy to. I want to share it with you. I want you to live a life of abundance, and I want your families and kids to also live in abundance. When you can do that, it goes to a whole different level. You don't have to worry about people coming to you at the end of the year saying, I need a 3%, I need this, I need that. I really don't, I don't have that. I mean, it's been a blessed experience to live a life of abundance now instead of scarcity.
So if there was one tip for our audience that you would give around thinking abundantly, what would that tip be?
Well, I think first you have to, I think when you can, the tip to me would be like, is 100% is the people. When you can live a life of abundance, you are able to create an environment for you to have people in your workplace that will go do more than what's required. They're not going to leave at 5:01. They're going to go beyond what their job description is. They're going to go the extra mile for you all the time. And when you can do that, you've got it. You're on your way. Mm-hmm. You're really on your way. So when you can flip over and go to abundance, you're going to be on your way. So I will tell you that my investment in you is going to pay. I don't look at it. So abundance to me is whatever I give you is going to come back to me tenfold. Mm-hmm. So if that's monetary or whatever that's PT, whatever that is in your world for you to be abundant, it's a no-brainer for an investment. It's going to come back to me 100 times, whatever I give you.
You just said it as it's an investment.
Yeah.
It's not an expense. And that's the scarcity mindset is an expense, but you've got to look at it. I'm investing in my people into the longevity of their employment, into the longevity of success, whatever it might be. That's wonderful.
100%, for sure. When you can make that switch, you're going to have it's going to be fabulous for you and your people, for sure. Don't look at it as an expense. Look at it as an investment, 100%.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a great conversation.
It has.
I really love your insights and how you're thinking about things and how your mindset and skills have grown through the years. And I think that's a great thing. We call our audience the achiever because they're always going after the next level. And that's really what you've done. You got to keep learning. You got to keep changing. You got to keep learning about yourself, not just learning new skills. You got to learn about yourself. And I think that's come out in how you recognize, what do I invest in myself? What do I invest in for businesses? And having that entrepreneurial mindset.
Absolutely. I think you always have to be learning, for sure. If I leave you with anything, you always have to be learning. Always have to be understanding what is next. What do I have to learn? Where are we going? What do I want? What do I want it to look like? And I was always be learning. If I could, you always have to learn. If I hear a lot of people, well, I know all that. I'm like, I don't like those words are tough for me to metabolize.
Yeah.
You say you know it all. That's a very difficult environment.
That's a red flag.
Yeah. Just a couple more thoughts. As you look back through your entrepreneurial journey, if there was one thing that you would do different, that have that greater balance of life, what would that look like?
Yeah, I would have put more. I would have looked at. I think I talked to you about it earlier, like a total pie. I would have. Sometimes I think I would worry myself to death, almost literally, right? And meaning I want to work on that total pie, not just areas of my life. I think it's the best entrepreneurs can build a total pie: faith, family, finances, wealth. And I think that those are the most well-rounded, successful entrepreneurs. And so that to me, that's the definition of being successful, is having a complete pie, not just areas of it.
That's fantastic. Well, very good. A last question we always like to ask is, what do you want to be known for?
Well, that I'm not sure if I know that one. That's a tough one.
Still working on that one.
I want to be known as I'm still working. You're right. I think I'm still working on that one. I think it's, what do I want to be known for? Is I want to be known that I was a hard worker. I was fair. I want people to know that I want to be. It goes back to that abundance piece. I want to give back. And I do a lot of that now. We talked about my experience on the Entrepreneurs Organization, that global board. I like to give back, and I want people to be known. I want to be known for that, if it's anything, that I want to give back and give people the opportunity that potentially I didn't have when I was at or similar to their age. That you can own your own business, that you have this world has, and Paul said it earlier, I think now is the time to be an entrepreneur better than what it's ever been. There's so much education and abilities and finances to start businesses. I think we're in the absolute golden age of starting businesses. And I want to tell people that. I want to say, hey, not everybody, it doesn't fit everybody, right? We need CFOs, we need IT people, we need all those people, but we also need entrepreneurs. And that if I can evangelize to people that you can live like this and you can do this, I'd like to do that and give back.
That's awesome.
So,
Paul, what were some big takeaways you had from our conversation with Todd today?
Oh, I love the fact that you change your mindset, you change your life. That abundancy, going from scarcity to abundance is huge, and it's it's easily said, until you see it,
that's true.
And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, this stuff really does work.
Yeah.
And that's get back to what you're talking about, being coachable and open-minded and always be learning.
Yeah.
That's huge.
I love that. A couple of things that I took away that, it's having a solid foundation, whether it's having the right people in the right seat or having the discipline to stay focused on the right topics in your lane, and having a framework to follow, how you're managing your business. And you talked about, have your annual goals, your quarterly goals, your weekly goals. So you're focused on, how am I moving the business forward? And what are we doing today to get there? We're not just on the wheel. We're moving forward. And I love that solid foundation comment. I think that was powerful.
Yeah. For sure. You gotta know where you're going. If you don't, your team isn't going to go, so you got to know where you're going for sure.
Absolutely. So, well, if our audience, the Achiever, would love to get a hold of you, how would they do that?
Yeah, you can call me anytime, or call the office, 515-727-1383. You're more than happy to call. Our website's cleaningconnection.net. Probably get a hold of me personally on my mobile number. 515-202-981 is my 9821 is my personal mobile number. I'm happy to answer any questions. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, Todd, thank you for joining us. Love the conversation. Really appreciate your insights and your expertise in growing as an entrepreneur. And I think that's, I love how you've taken the steps of growth.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Well, thank you for joining us on today's episode, and make sure you like us and continue to follow, and look forward to our next show. Thanks for joining us.